My talk is called The Path of Play. Creative consciousness is limitless. So I do need to explain what these words mean to me so that we've all got a general sense of what it is that I'm talking about. And by the way, I got my title from a puck of tea bag when somebody gave me a puck of tea. So play. So Google says that play means an activity engaged in for recreation or leisure. But I'd like to say it's more than that. If you think about children playing, it's like, whoa, they are lost in an imaginal world and they're just accessing new ideas all the time. And while they're doing that, they're learning all the time. Creative, bringing something new into existence. Now, Einstein said that he never came up with anything new by thinking about what he'd done already. All he got was more of the same. He said that he needed to move into the infinite realm of the imaginal in order to get all those incredible ideas that he got. Consciousness. Google says it means awareness, but I'd like to describe it as a bit more than that. So think about the planet. It's covered in air, yeah? Now, air is one thing that we all have unlimited access to. Every single one of us has unlimited access to air. It's available for everybody. It's not quite infinite, but it's just about infinite. Limitless, obviously, no boundaries, limitless. So put all those together, and what it says to me is that by moving into an experience of play, that we are able to move into the infinite realm of consciousness, the imagination, and access whatever new ideas that we want or that we need and bring them into material reality. Now, human beings, we're animals, yeah? Do you all agree that we're animals? Yes. Some sort of animal. But we are a very special animal because we are a creative animal. Okay, a chimpanzee can get a stick and it can poke around in a termite mound and use it as a tool to get its termites out. But look at the world that we have created. We can pluck ideas from the imagination and then figure it out. And sometimes it doesn't happen immediately. It might take quite a bit of trial and error. But we can get those ideas and we can make them material. We can make them manifest. Now, Cheryl spoke earlier about how we're each individual special. Did you know that the chances of each one of us being here is the same as 2 million people throwing a double six? That's nearly the whole population of Manchester throwing a double six at the same time is the probability of you being here. Think how hard it is to throw a double six to get out of jail in Monopoly. Okay? Human beings. Not really human beings, are we? We're human doings. We're always doing something. But what are we doing? So we want to have a purpose in what we're doing. So you've got a handful of seeds. You want to create a vegetable garden. You've got a handful of seeds and you just go psh, 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 psh. You're going to end up with carrots in your roses. Okay, if you want a vegetable garden, you've got to get your carrot seeds and put them in a row, right? All your other seeds. And then after a few months, you go, well, they didn't grow. Obviously, my garden doesn't like those particular seeds, or those seeds don't like being in my garden, so you try something else. Yeah, that's how we learn. But we have to have a purpose. Finally, LinkedIn say that creativity is now the most sought after skill in the marketplace, and yet 80% of people in their workplace say that productivity is still valued higher than creativity. So where does that leave us? We all know that when our world is like this, teetering on the brink of change. Yeah? We're going through massive changes. And we desperately need new ideas, new solutions, and we need them fast. We also know that in the last few years, people seem to have got less and less happy. In fact, the NHS say that 70% of adults are now on antidepressants. That's like an epidemic of unhappiness. So maybe you are the sort of person who goes, I have everything in my life. I have a lovely home, I have friends, I maybe have a family, I have a good job, I have clothes to wear, I've got good food on my table. I know that I am very lucky. Maybe you feel like that. But deep inside, it's like, but there's something missing. Why don't I feel really happy? Why don't I feel really content? And you want to have that feeling of like you're just so immersed in your life. It's like someone described it earlier. It's like when you look around you, you're just like, wow, what a wonderful world. Everything is beautiful. I love life. That's how we all want to feel. So how do we get from, is this it, to this is it? Well, I believe that we get there through play. So I've created these 4-day retreats. And the idea is that we get into our creativity. I bring loads of different creative things to do. And I always make sure there's some water activity, and I make sure there's some fire activity, and there's music, and whatever it is that people want to do. And I can tell you, I had one lad, he was only 22, he turned up and I thought, oh, he's going to have loads of energy. He slept the whole time, he was exhausted. So many of us are exhausted. So on these retreats, we just get to play. And it's like, I'm not saying like, we're playing like how children might play, but we're playing in terms of moving into our imaginal realm and bringing down those new ideas. And sometimes they're not actually that new. They're something that we knew about when we were actually really quite little. I'd like to tell you a story. A few years ago, I was traveling in British Columbia in the islands of Haida Gwaii, and they're still governed by the people who've lived there for tens of thousands of years. So I was getting a lift with an elder in the community in his pickup, and he had a load of wood in the back. He'd obviously been out there chopping. He was pretty fit, although he was, he was my age, whereas most of the people there were actually really overweight. But he had like long dark hair, and he was pretty fit, and he was driving his truck. And he said, I'm an elder in the community. And I said, oh, okay. And we got into this discussion about why so many of the young men in particular have such bad drug and alcohol problems. And this is what he said to me. He said, in our culture, when children get to the age of 3, we give them a whole range of objects to play with. And we look to see what they're drawn to, because that gives us a really good indication of what it is that they're likely to serve our community with in the future, how they are going to contribute to our community. What skills are they going to contribute? And then we can guide them, we can help shepherd them. He said the problem is, what do you do when 80% of your boys are meant to be warriors and we have no more wars? Now, obviously his story was about what do you do with 80% of boys. But I was like, we know at the age of 3 what it is that we're here to contribute? Now, I've been a teacher and I've worked with teenagers, and I'm sometimes like, whoa, they're just all over the place. But recently I've met 2 young men who have really stuck in my mind. One, he was 10 years old. He was the most incredible percussionist. All the guys wanted to play with him because he was so good. So I went to see his mum. Whoa, he's amazing, I said. What else is he into? She said, he's just designed us a wind turbine. He's about to start building it. He was 10. And then this summer, I met a guy. Now, he was already 28, but he'd been the manager of his software company since he was 24. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. How'd you do that? He said, I've been a software expert since I was 12. I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. What is going on that actually we're not drawing out this expertise from our really young people? Now, I suspect that most of us have been through a normal sort of education where we got fed information and then we just had to regurgitate it, yeah? We didn't have what I call a child-led education, where we were allowed to follow our passions, follow whatever it was that interested us, to the point where we became an expert in it at a very young age. So on these retreats, we go back to those first 7 years in particular, because up until the age of 7, we all lived in our imagination. We didn't know the difference between our imaginary realm and the real realm. It was all the same to us. So we go back, we dive back. Like, what were we interested in? What fired us up? What sparked us? I was talking to a guy the other day we're accountability partners, and he said, I love to draw. He said, I loved to draw. He said, I would draw a tree and it would be like I was in it. He said, but I gave it up when I was 12 and I haven't drawn since, and he's now 46. I was like, ooh, whoa. He said, I knew it was a spiritual experience. So these were spiritual experiences that we were having when we were really small. So we go back and we sort of like uncover them, dig them out, have fun, make up costumes, get dressed up, whatever you want to do. So there's 2 things that we do on retreat that you can take away and do with you at home. One person's already spoken about one of them today, and that's about smiling. Because when we smile, even if we don't feel to, and we just go like that, we trigger chemicals in our brain called neuropeptides. You may have heard of serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, and they make us feel good. And they reduce our blood pressure, they support our immune system, and they just reduce our stress. They make us feel good. So smile all the time, even when you're on your own. And secondly, we take away all watches, all clocks, and all phones. We go timeless. Okay, you get up when you want, you eat when you want, you go to bed when you want, and in between that, you do what you want. Okay, now you can practice that at home, like a weekend or a holiday. If you've got an important appointment, just put the alarm on so it reminds you, and then see what happens. Even if you've got a list of things to do, you'll go, I feel to do the hoovering now. And you'll find it's a different experience.